journalists gathering stuff up from the building and hurrying out of the building. Okay. Hey, really quick, I want to say a quick thanks to our moderators. Again, that story was in Times of Israel, that one there. Thanks to our moderators. I really appreciate it. Our moderators are awesome. They are all volunteers, so really appreciate the moderators. We got, hang on a second here. We have Danny James. Hey, Danny's moderating. Thank you so much, Danny. And let's see here. Angel Shark is there. Hey, thanks, Angel Shark. Angel Shark's moderating too. Thank you. Lizzie is moderating. Thank you. And let's see here. We got kooky people claiming that this building wasn't blown up, even though Israel themselves said they blew it up. We have kooky people claiming that this building wasn't blown up, which is just nutty. Anyways, keep being nutty. Let's see. Or they're saying that it was somehow like imploded from inside, not an airstrike. Hey, thanks to our Facebook and Twitch moderators too. Ellie Bourne, Idaho Star, LLQ Lovely, Papa Bear, Racing Neophyte, Rift Tracks, Harry Egg, and Sully. Oh, and really quick before we move on with the news, which we're going to do right now, really quick before we move on with the news, I do want to quickly say, I want to pass along condolences to the family of one of our moderators. We had a Twitch moderator who was named Kinpiki. That was the screen name, Kinpiki. That was not the moderator's real name. And she unfortunately passed away recently. I just found this out last night. One of our moderators in Twitch, Idaho Star, had found out and let me know this. So very, very sad news. What can I say? It's just terrible. One of our moderators, Kinpiki from Twitch, I guess she was sick with cancer and she passed away. So just wanted to publicly pass along my condolences and say how sad I am about this. Just terrible. I did not know she was sick, and I just found out about this after the stream last night. So again, it's sad news for about her, and so I just wanted to say something about that and acknowledge that, and again, pass along my thoughts to the family. I don't know that the family's watching this, but if they somehow are, my condolences to them. Okay. All right, so let's continue here, but I did want to say something about that. Ooh, what is this? This is from Parallel Universe. Hamas armed wing threatens to impose a curfew by rockets. Wow, look at this. So we have a threat of rockets. Okay, threat of rockets. Okay, this could be a sign of more rockets to come. This is a story in New Press, which is a Palestinian news outlet. Parallel Universe passes along the story. Hamas, which is the ruling group in Gaza, they're the ones who've been firing most of the rockets at Israel from Gaza. They're threatening to impose a curfew on Israel. How? By firing rockets. They're threatening to impose a curfew by firing rockets on Tel Aviv and the surrounding area from 10 p.m., which starts in 10 minutes, to noon by orders from Mohammed Daif. Mohammed Daif. I assume that's a higher up within Hamas. He is the supreme military commander and chief of staff of Al-Qassam Brigades, which is the military wing of Hamas. So he is basically the supreme military commander in Hamas. This is a threat from Hamas to in 5 minutes. This would start in 5 minutes. It is 9:55 p.m. right now, Israel time. So the Hamas threat is that they are going to, quote unquote, impose a curfew on Tel Aviv and surroundings by firing rockets starting in about 5 minutes for 2 hours, I guess. So we'll see if that happens. But that's 5 minutes from now. Yeah, look, see? Joe Truzman. Abu Obeida, spokesperson of the Al-Qassam brigades. By order of Chief of Staff Abu Khaled Muhammad al-Daif, the curfew on Tel Aviv and its surroundings is lifted for 2 hours. Lifted? I think this is maybe, I think what he means to be saying, he's like offering a translation. But I think the point is that they're going to impose the curfew. Yeah, look, see, Aurora Intel. Oh. Hold on. Instant news alerts. Hamas military wing threatens massive rocket fire towards Tel Aviv between 10 and 1. Is it 10 and midnight or 10 and 1? See, I'm seeing, now I'm seeing it maybe is not, now I'm seeing maybe it was mistranslation. Maybe they're not imposing a curfew. Hold on a second. There's some confusion about what they said. Maybe because I'm seeing different translations. See, now Elint News says Hamas spokesman in order for a curfew on Tel Aviv and its surroundings for a period of 2 hours from 10 to 12 tonight. That makes more sense than saying we're lifting a curfew, because there's no curfew on Israel, obviously, right? There's no curfew on Israel. So it's weird to me if they said, we're going to lift the curfew for 2 hours. But I don't know, because I've seen some different translations of this passage. So I'm waiting to see what some other accounts say. It sounds like a threat, but let me be sure, because I've seen some different readings of that passage. Yes, see, there it is. Okay, good. So right. So Joe Truzman says he meant that it's imposed. So he knows what he's talking about, and he says Hamas is threatening to impose, that should say impose a curfew for 2 hours from 10 to 12. So again, starting in 3 minutes, it is 9:57 p.m. there. Hamas is saying we are going to impose a curfew on Tel Aviv and its surroundings by firing rockets starting in 3 minutes. Now, in the Tel Aviv area is where a 50-year-old man was killed. I want to say about 7 or 8 hours ago, maybe a little longer. But in the last, this past to earlier today, a 50-year-old man was killed in a suburb of Tel Aviv, I believe it was. It was in Tel Aviv suburb. See? Jerusalem Post earlier today, 1 dead in Tel Aviv suburb. And that was from a rocket. So now they're threatening to launch more rockets at the Tel Aviv area. The person who died in Ramat Gan, which is a suburb of Tel Aviv, which is there. So usually the rockets are not fired at Tel Aviv. It's a little more rare. The rockets from Gaza are usually fired on areas closer to Gaza. So it's particularly provocative if they're going to start firing them again at Tel Aviv, which they already did again this morning, earlier today. But it is, 1 minute until 10 p.m., at which time Hamas is threatened to fire rockets. But look, this is different. Now I don't understand this. Aurora Intel says, correction, Hamas is saying the curfew will be lifted for 2 hours. Now I'm just confused. Now I'm totally confused. This is from Aurora Intel. There seems to be still confusion about whether Hamas said the curfew will be imposed or lifted. So Aurora Intel is now saying, correction, Hamas said the curfew would be lifted, which, again, there's no curfew imposed by Hamas on Israel. Maybe it's, I don't know if this is like a pre-cease, if it's true that they said lifted, maybe this is like a pre-ceasefire kind of goodwill gesture, like we're not going to fire rockets at Tel Aviv for 2 hours. Seems like kind of a strange thing to say. So we still don't know what was said. We're still seeing both things. Well, ultimately we'll see. Ultimately we'll see if rockets are fired. So sorry for the confusion. This was posted by Manny Fabian, who's with Times of Israel. He said, firefighters take cover as rockets are fired from the Gaza Strip as they attempt to extinguish a fire caused by an earlier impact. I don't know where this is in Israel. This would be in Israel. Maybe this was last night. I'm not sure. Striking photos. Oh, maybe it's tonight. I'm not sure. A quick thank you, by the way. Sorry. A quick thank you to Cody Keith. Thank you, Cody, for your support. I appreciate it, Cody. And Ray CH. Thank you, Ray CH. Ray CH says, praying for the innocent on both sides. C. Riley. Thank you, C. Riley, for your support. No, I am Clarky. I unfortunately cannot slow the chat down any more than it is. Once enough people post messages in the YouTube chat, it just goes at a certain speed. I have no control over that. But thank you, I am Clarky. Thank you, Joe Basile. Yeah, I think, Joe, maybe you're talking about what we were just talking about in your comment. And Braden Tracy, thank you, Braden, for your support. Yeah, so again, there's confusion over people who know what they're talking about whether the curfew was lifted or imposed. Okay, look. See? Hey, look at this. It looks like clarification. I misinterpreted what is being written in the tweet because I did not understand the context. Hamas has said that it lifts the curfew. They think people are staying in their homes waiting for rockets since afternoon. Meaning they say they will not fire rockets in those 2 hours, but could resume rocket fire since midnight. This is interesting. Okay, so it looks like, again, I'm sorry for the confusion. Parallel Universe, who's in Israel, says that the statement, so it looks like the statement was that Hamas is saying they will not fire rockets at Tel Aviv or all of Israel in those 2 hours. If they are saying that, I just wonder if that's like kind of a, something you do before a ceasefire, like a little taste of a ceasefire, maybe. That's very interesting. See, look, this says ceasefire talks gain speed. This is from Jerusalem Post. Let's see. Where does it talk about the ceasefire talks? The headline says ceasefire talks gain speed, and then there's nothing in the article but the ceasefire talks. It doesn't mention it. It says ceasefire talks continue to gain momentum. That's it. All right. Oh, this is interesting. This is interesting. Here's another way to read this statement. Again, Hamas has said it is currently 10:04 p.m. in Israel right now and in Gaza. Hamas said that the curfew on Tel Aviv and the surrounding areas will be lifted from 10 to midnight. No rocket fire from Gaza at the Tel Aviv from 10 to midnight. Aurora Intel says this means we will probably see a barrage of rockets toward Tel Aviv at midnight. That's an interesting way of reading the statement. If you say, hey, Israel, we're not going to fire any rockets at Tel Aviv from 10 to midnight, Maybe it's another way of saying, well, watch out at midnight. So midnight is in an hour and 55 minutes. That's interesting. So I'm not familiar enough with the language of their communications and what they normally imply and how they say things to know how to take this. But there's another way of reading this, which is like it's a veiled threat to start firing rockets at midnight, which would be in less than 2 hours. Okay. That's interesting from Aurora Intel. Interesting. A quick thank you to Aniki Tidgson. Aniki A. Tidgson. Thanks for your support. Also, Violet77. Hey, thanks, Violet77, very much for your support. And hang on one second here. So we'll keep an eye out and see if there's more rockets. There has not been a rocket alert since we came on the air, I can tell you that. But right before we came on the air, there were a bunch of rockets fired. Give me 1 second here, guys. I got to check the comments from you as well. @Lookner on Twitter. Robin Pilus, thanks for the Facebook stars, by the way, Robin Pilus. See, look, okay. Manny Fabian, who is a reporter in Israel, says Tel Aviv, Hamas threatens midnight, you know the drill. Okay, so he's saying the same thing. He's saying that Hamas runs Gaza. There's been rockets are being fired from Gaza into Israel. Israel's attacking Gaza with airstrikes. So Hamas, which runs Gaza, has said, hey, we're not going to fire any rockets at Tel Aviv between 10 and midnight. And what we're hearing, though, is from people who know what they're talking about, like Manny Fabian, is that means, oh, we're going to fire rockets at midnight. So Manny Fabian says, Tel Aviv, Hamas threatens midnight, you know the drill. So he also thinks that what Hamas said when they said no rockets at Tel Aviv between 10 and midnight really means we're going to start firing rockets at midnight at Tel Aviv. As to why they come out and say that I am not sure. I don't know. Why do they publicly say that in advance? That I can't tell you. So that would be in an hour and 53 minutes because it's 10:07 p.m. local time. But I will say this. We've been on the air, like 40 minutes? No rocket alerts since we've been on the air. I have not heard airstrike reports since we've been on the air. Oh, I just heard a report of an airstrike. Look. This is from Palestine Now, which is a Palestinian news site. Israeli warplanes target the Yarmouk site in the Man area of Khan Yunis, south of the Gaza Strip. So some kind of Khan Yunis is down here. So it's a report of an Israeli strike somewhere in the south of Gaza. That just came out. So apparently Israeli strike still ongoing. They just posted that. Oh, also there's this from My Palestine. They call them occupation forces. Israeli forces suppress Palestinian protesters with sound bombs would be probably the stun grenades that make a loud noise in the Sheikh Jarrah neighborhood, which is in East Jerusalem. So this is a report that there's protesters in East Jerusalem, Palestinian protesters, and the Israeli forces are shooting off stun grenades. Here's right now airstrike report. Shahab News Agency, they just posted this. Israeli warplanes target a house east of Gaza City in Gaza. Just came out with that. So there's Israeli strikes are ongoing. Okay. Give me a shout if you have comments, questions, updates at LookNerd. Access Pro Films says to translate live from TV with your phone, you could use Google Translator app. Click on the camera and you will get live translation with your mobile phone camera. That's interesting. Do I have the Google Translator app? Can you get that app on iOS? Because sometimes I'm watching like an Arabic news channel and I want to translate the writing on the screen. I do have it. I have the app. Okay, I can open the app. Oh, there's camera. Okay, I might try this. Aim at text. It didn't work very well. It worked terribly. I'm trying to translate some text on the TV screen, and it's horrible. But I'll try it again. It really worked poorly. Thank you for the suggestion, though, Osis Pro Films. Thank you. Dead Miss sent me some translations, too. Bethany says Al Jazeera reported Israeli military has warned they are planning to strike another residential tower in Gaza. I haven't heard anything the last few minutes about that. I think I heard something just before we came on the air, so I'll let you know if I hear more about that. Thank you. Jason Gold says the Tel Aviv suburb is pronounced Ramat Gan. Rhymes with none. Thank you, Jason Gold. Not Ramat Gan. Hang on. Just checking a couple things people have sent me as well. Habaza sent me, I think it's a video of a protest in Manchester, UK, where people are pro-Palestinian demonstration. I've seen footage and shots of different demonstrations going on over this in different parts of the world. Thank you for sending that. Also, Mr. Jamie Smith mentioned that there was, Israel did a strike on another high-rise where they targeted a couple of apartments, not the whole building. That was early. That was a few hours ago. I think I might have something on that. Also, I want to mention really quick. Hold on a second. Yeah, this was right here. See? Aurora Intel. 2 apartments, you can see. 2 apartments near. I guess it's at Mushtaha Tower, next to the finance ministry in Gaza. And then there were two apartments targeted, according to Aurora Intel. That was a few hours ago. And you can see Aurora Intel says image of the two apartments targeted in the strike, similar targeting conducted previously. I assume there's damage to other units as well. I don't know how you keep the damage to two apartments. Now also, let's see here. Where is this coming from? Hold on a second. Hang on. Al Jazeera Arabic is showing like a shot of a fire somewhere burning, and I don't know where that fire is supposed to be. Let me try my phone again. I'm sure it won't work. I'll try it though. I'm going to try the thing with Google Translator on my phone. Where is it here? I'll try. I'll get the camera up from Google Translator. Aim at text. Okay, I'm aiming it at the text. It's thinking. It's totally not working. No. Anyway, so I don't know. The Al Jazeera Arabic, I don't know with the fire they're showing. So it looks like a fire in Israel somewhere. I don't know where they're showing that from. Then there's another feed showing a shot from Belen of some stuff on the street on fire. Like somebody's created a barricade in the street. And Belen is in, hold on, is that the West Bank? I don't know where it is. Or is it in Israel? Or is it in neither? I put in Belen and I get Bethlehem. So maybe it's in Bethlehem. I'm consulting the internet on this, but Bethlehem is in the West Bank. They're showing like a barricade on the street with some fire and some Israeli troops just standing there. So, anyways, I don't know where they're getting that from. I don't know where they're getting that from and what's going on there. Yes, one of our viewers, Rhinus, says Belen equals Bethlehem. That's what the internet seemed to say. So I don't know. Again, it looks like maybe there's some protesting gone in Bethlehem. So there have been, in recent days, there have been protests going on in the West Bank over what's going on in Gaza. So Gaza is a Palestinian territory. Israel oversees the West Bank. Many people use the word occupies. It's a loaded word. So anyways, but they oversee the security they oversee the West Bank, but most of the majority of the residents, the large majority of the residents in the West Bank are Palestinian. So there have been, in recent nights, protests going on in the West Bank over what's going on with Israel, between Israel and Gaza. And so I'm assuming the shot I'm looking at from Bethlehem is people protesting in Bethlehem. Is Palestinian protesters. So I'll let you know if I hear more about that. Hold on. Let's see here. There we go. Hey, thanks, by the way, to Sharon Heberling for your support. Thank you, Sharon. It's good to see you, Sharon. I hope you're feeling okay. Sharon Heberling, thank you. Also, Michael Rafferty. Thank you so much, Michael Rafferty, for your support. Thank you, Brian Birch, for your support. And Jailbot. Thank you, Jailbot, for your support. Oh, so this is in Hebron. This is a report of clashes in Hebron. The Israel link says riots. So this is Hebron in the West Bank? Let me just make sure. Or not. Yes, Hebron is a Palestinian city in the West Bank. So Israel Link says this is a video from, they say is from Hebron. Let me show you something about the West Bank stuff. So this was, hold on a second here. Here's an article about West Bank. West Bank erupts in protest amid more Israel-Hamas fighting. This is from the AP. Turmoil from the battle between Israel and Hamas spilled over into the West Bank yesterday, sparking the most widespread Palestinian protests in years as hundreds of young demonstrators in multiple towns in the West Bank clashed with Israeli troops who shot and killed at least 11 people. Let's see here. Blah, 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 blah. In the occupied West Bank, so AP uses the word occupied, on the outskirts of Ramallah, Nablus, and other towns and cities, hundreds of Palestinians protested against the Gaza campaign by Israel and Israeli actions in Jerusalem. Waving Palestinian flags, they trucked in tires that they set up in burning barricades and hurled stones at the Israeli soldiers. At least 10 protesters were shot and killed by soldiers. An 11th Palestinian was killed when he tried to stab a soldier at a military position. Okay, so there's more protests going on tonight in the West Bank over what's going on in Gaza and also over stuff that's been going on in Jerusalem for the last month or so. But I will say, there have not been any rockets so far since we've been on the air for about an hour. Seeing some reports of airstrikes, though. What is this? Hold on a second. Hold on. Just got to do something real quick here. This Asaf Ronel, who is an Israeli journalist, says last night, this is Israel police throwing stun grenades at houses in Jaffa last night. Is Jaffa West Bank? I assume they're not just doing this randomly. No, Jaffa is that's a city in the Tel Aviv region. Okay, Jaffa. Let's see. Blah 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 blah. Demography. Modern Jaffa is a mixed Jewish-Arab city in Israel. 30,000 Jews, 16,000 Arabs. So this is from, hold on, where was this? According to journalist Asaf Ronel, this is from last night, Israeli police throwing stun grenades.
יש ילדים! יש ילדים וואלה! וואלה יש ילדים יושנים, די!
Now, I don't know the context of this. I mean, a stun grenade, usually, like a stun grenade is something you throw if you want to clear people out of an area. You throw it in there and it's loud and it makes the people go away. So I don't know in this video what the context is. Let's see, did they say anything else? There's a thread here on stuff in Jaffa from Asaf Ronel, which I haven't read. Asaf Ronel said 5 hours ago, this is a video of a Palestinian in Jaffa under attack. People are going home to guard their children. The police are seen as part of the attack. So I don't know the background about this. It seems like it's kind of complex, and I'm not going to read through the whole thing now and try to unravel it. But if you want to, go to @Asaf Ronel. It looks like there's some background about it here. @Asaf Ronel, who's a reporter for Haaretz. But again, I can't. I'm not going to go. It seems like a lot to go through right now, so I'm not going to go through it. But there is background there. Oh, and you know, one of our viewers had sent me a shot of a protest in Manchester, UK, where it was like a pro-Palestinian protest. Just speaking of that, this is Ford Fisher. He is in D.C., and he says hundreds gathered in Washington, D.C. to hold a Free Palestine march and condemn President Biden's continued support for Israel's military campaign against Palestinians. I'm guessing there are also pro-Israel demonstrations going on in locations outside of the Middle East as well. But just as an example of one of these rallies going on, demonstrations worldwide. That's from Ford Fisher. Hold on.
Acknowledge that Israel can do any wrong. On top of all of that.
A quick thank you, by the way, to it's an interesting suggestion. DXB Drone says, can you add a Palestine clock on your channel? Palestine-Israel clock. I know what you're saying. I can't just simply add it. I might look into it for next broadcast. It's a little involved what I have to do that. But I mean, I'm trying to regularly give updates, but it's an interesting suggestion. So thank you. I will look into it. Thank you also, Colossians 2:9. Thanks for your support. And also, Hey New Girl. Thank you, Hey New Girl, for your support as well. Really appreciate it. So by the way, there was, just to update you again, it's 10:30 p.m. local, 10:29 p.m. local time in Israel and Gaza. And there was this threat made by Hamas, an indirect threat that they were going to. Hamas had said a little while ago that they were not going to fire rockets at Tel Aviv area from 10 to midnight, which some people I follow, some reporters I follow, are saying they interpret that as meaning they're going to fire rockets at midnight, which would be an hour and a half at the Tel Aviv area. So we'll see if that happens. Oh, Israel released a video of them blowing up a house, I think. Is that what they did? Yeah, Manny Fabian just posted this. Israeli Defense Forces. A short while ago, an Israeli fighter jet struck the house of Raed Saad, chief of staff of Hamas Special Operations, which served as terror infrastructure. It sounds like they warned people to. It sounds like it wasn't a targeted assassination. And they warned people to get out of the house. Yeah, see, this is just what I was talking about. Haaretz. Hamas says it will resume rocket fire at central Israel, where Tel Aviv is, after midnight, which is an hour and a half. So maybe there won't be rockets for another hour and a half. There are still... I mentioned that I was seeing shots of a fire on Al Jazeera Arabic. Maybe this is where the fire is. Palestinian source, Palestine Events Agency, says Hebrew media are saying a fire broke out in the areas of Ashkelon due to the fall of a rocket fired from Gaza. Ashkelon is a little north of the Gaza Strip. Ashkelon, I think it is. So there's Gaza, there's Ashkelon. So maybe the fire's here. Maybe that's what they were showing on Al Jazeera Arabic. Okay. And still reports going on of Israeli airstrikes. So, for example, this was posted 1 minute ago. Palestine Now, Palestinian media. Israeli warplanes target a resistance position north of Nusrat refugee camp near Gaza Valley. So another report of an airstrike there. That was just posted. Then there's this one from Al Jazeera. Al Jazeera correspondent, Israeli raids target a house in western Gaza and a site for Palestinian factions in the Nuseirat camp in the central Gaza Strip. So there are more Israeli strikes going on. We keep hearing reports of those. Those reports were just posted. I haven't seen stuff on video, though. Like video footage of explosions in Gaza, but the strikes are ongoing. Hang on a second here. I don't know how the lucky Blackbird was able to translate. The lucky Blackbird was able to get their iPhone to do a good job of translating. See? That's not what happened with mine. Mine did not translate like this. How did you do that? Did you take a photo? I don't know. All I can tell you is I tried to translate and it did not work very well. I'll try again, though. Osis Pro Films says, in the Google Translate app, you can also take a photo of the TV screen. You first press scan in the app and then take pic. Better results. I'll try it. I'll try it, Osis Pro Films. Again, because sometimes I'm looking at these Arabic language streams and I don't know what they're talking about because they'll have something on the screen. I don't know what it is, and they'll be writing on the screen, and it'd be nice to be able to translate the writing. Puneet says somebody else suggested a different app. Anyways. Okay. Thank you. People are suggesting different translation possibilities. Ivan also suggested make sure you're choosing the language to translate. Yeah, the Lucky Blackbird says Lucky Blackbird says make sure you have Arabic selected as the destination language. I'm going to try this again. I'm going to go to Al God TV. Let's try this. All right, here we go. It worked. Oh my gosh, this worked. What I didn't have done is I didn't have the languages chosen. Oh, it worked perfectly. Oh, this is fantastic. Now I can translate these captions in Arabic. On Al Gad TV, which is an Arabic language station, they say the headline they have is that Hamas has announced a halt to the bombing of Tel Aviv for 2 hours, but that ends in an hour and 25 minutes. Oh, that's helpful. Cool. Thank you. Thanks to the people who suggested that. And then on Al Jazeera, let's see what they're saying. Al Jazeera Arabic. Israel raids target a house west of Gaza. Oh, Al Jazeera Arabic has a headline which is about the recent Israel airstrikes, which we just told you about. Cool. Oh my gosh, it's amazing. It's incredible. If you're looking at an Arabic news station, you want to translate, just get the Google Translate app and just turn on the camera and just set the languages from Arabic to English or whatever languages you want, Arabic to something, and then you just point the camera at the video. It's like magic. It translates for you. Fantastic. Thank you. It worked. Well, let's see something here. In case you missed, oh, look at this. Hey, check this out. Israel Link says, Hamas graphic. I don't know where they're getting this. They found this somewhere. See, I can translate this too. I'm going to translate this with my phone and see what it says. Let's try this. It says, countdown. The ban was lifted for 2 hours from Tel Aviv, then there's an expression, return to standing on one leg. So all this, I don't know who made this graphic, but basically it's just talking about the... Israel Link says Hamas, but it's just talking about, again, Hamas has said from 10 to midnight they wouldn't be firing rockets at Tel Aviv area, which a lot of people are taking as a threat to actually start firing them in an hour and 22 minutes. That was from the Israel Link. Okay. The bargain bin says you can use your mic on Google Translate, meaning you could also hear what they're saying. Interesting. Interesting. Thank you. Hey, I just want to update you. Oh, now it's interesting. Al Jazeera Arabic has a reporter at the Washington, D.C. pro-Palestinian demonstration at the Washington Monument. It looks like they are. So while we have a second here, I just want to go over a couple of the larger stories we were talking about in case you missed them earlier. So one thing that happened that was a big deal since we, where is it here? Since we were last on the air last night, here, let me show you this, was another high-rise was destroyed by Israel in Gaza. And this high-rise had a bunch of media offices in it, including the offices of the Associated Press and Al Jazeera. So you can see this is Jerusalem Post. Now, Jerusalem Post is not an anti-Israel paper. They're not a pro-Palestinian anti-Israel paper. If anything, they would lean a little more towards Israel. So they say Israel slammed for strike on AP, Al Jazeera, Gaza offices in attack on Hamas. So this building here, this high-rise building, a 12-story high-rise building with a bunch of media offices in it, was destroyed earlier today by Israel in an airstrike. And Israel says it was being used for military purposes by Hamas. So you can say Israel came under heavy criticism on Saturday. Well, so by a lot of journalists are criticizing it for striking a 12-story tower in Gaza, housing the offices of foreign media affiliates such as the Associated Press, Al Jazeera, and other news outlets. The U.S. government, the AP, and Al Jazeera each publicly expressed their concerns with the operation. The IAF struck the high-rise building, which also housed a number of apartments and various offices, and said that the building contained military assets of the military intelligence of Hamas, hiding under the guise of the foreign media outlets. Let's see here. And then the president and CEO of AP called the strike an incredibly disturbing development. Now let me show you here the video from before that we showed you of the building. Where is it here? Right. Where is it? Here. This is a Al Jazeera footage. I think it's Al Jazeera footage. Yes, Al Jazeera footage of the building when it was destroyed a few hours ago. Here it goes. Oops. Let's try this again. Then AFP had a post about it, had a different angle. Let's get that here, if I can find it. Here it is, AFP. So that happened. And then something else that happened is, that we talked about earlier, a big story, is that a man, an Israeli was killed by a rocket in Ramat Gan, which is a suburb of Tel Aviv. Let's see, I'll show you that. Where is this? I'm trying to find the article on it. Yeah, this is from Jerusalem Post. 1 dead in Tel Aviv suburb. A rocket landed there and killed a 50-year-old man. They also have this. It says, police and rescue personnel at the scene of a rocket hit in Ramat Gan, which was fired from Gaza Strip. And they say here, where is it here? About the 50-year-old man. It should mention it in here. Now it doesn't mention it in here. The last time it did. Why did they remove that? Are they not sure that he was 50 anymore? This says 55-year-old man. Oh. Man killed in Ramat Gan as rocket strike as barrages batter center south of Israel. 55-year-old didn't have time to reach shelter after warning. Israel. Sorry, no, sorry. So again, this is Times of Israel says a 55-year-old man was killed on Saturday in a rocket strike on the Tel Aviv suburb of Ramat Gan. According to Channel 12 News, the man did not have a protected area in his home and was unable to reach a bomb shelter in time. The outlet said that shrapnel from the rocket pierced the door to the man's home. Images from the scene showed widespread destruction as the projectile slammed into the residential area. And there's a picture from Ramat Gan. Oh, and then there's this too. I saw this earlier. This is footage of people in Tel Aviv, I believe, running away on the beach when a rocket alert happened. Footage later emerged of people fleeing the beach in Tel Aviv as sirens wailed across the city, warning of the incoming fire. So this is from Quds N. They posted this. That was about 8 hours ago. Thank you, Brian Birch, for your support. Brian says, are the rocket personnel subject to urinalysis checking or background checks? Brian, I don't know the specifics on that, but the people who launched the rockets from Gaza, I would assume would be like people specially trained in it, soldiers, if you will, in the military force of Gaza. But I don't know the specifics on how they pick those people. Thank you, Andrew Schlegel, as well. Thank you, Andrew, for your support. So we are bringing you the latest updates live, agenda-free TV. By the way, if you like chatting with other viewers, when we're not on there, you can still chat with other viewers. We have a Discord chat where people who watch our channel chat with each other between broadcasts. So you can check that out. The link to the Discord is in the description. It's in the description of this broadcast on YouTube. So if you look at the description of this video, you'll see the link to the Discord. And the mods can post that link as well. Hang on a second here. Cameron Lee in our Facebook chat mentioned the number of people killed so far. I will see if I can get you the latest toll here. It gets updated every once in a while. Oh, here it is right here. So this is, in terms of the Palestinian numbers, look. According to Times of Israel, Hamas Health Ministry, 145 killed in Gaza fighting, including 41 children. It says over 1,000 people have been wounded. In Israel, I think the death toll is either 10 or 11 now, with many more than that injured. But if I see a total, I'll let you know. Times of Israel said today 10 Israelis, including a young child, have been killed in the rocket fire and hundreds have been injured. Ooh, update. Aleph says, who I follow, Aleph says another branch of National has been roof knocked. National what? I'm not sure. Another building has been roof knocked, which means in central Gaza, which means they warn people to get out of the building. They'll drop some kind of light munition, which makes, some kind of explosion, which doesn't destroy the building, but it lets people know inside, it's like, hey, we're going to destroy this building. But I don't have the specifics on that building. By the way, Ford Fisher, if you want to watch it at all, he specializes, like he goes out to events and covers them live. He's very good. He is showing on his Twitter feed the Free Palestine March in D.C. So if you want to see any of that, go to Ford Fisher on Twitter. You can see, look, it's at the Washington Monument. We have an hour and 10 minutes until midnight when at midnight there, Hamas appears to have threatened to launch rockets at Tel Aviv. Captain Spam Cake sent me this. Aurora Intel posted this earlier. Abu Hamza. We still have some more surprises for Israel, and we entered some new rockets into service today. All right, hang on 1 second here. As we continue to bring you live coverage and bring you the latest developments. Hang on here. Hang on 1 sec. So what will happen in about an hour at midnight? There are going to be more rockets. We haven't had any rocket launches since we came on the air, which is good. But unfortunately, we have a threat of more rocket launches soon. Give me a shout if you have comments, questions. We'll be taking your comments and questions and updates at Lookner on Twitter. Okay, really quickly, I just need to take a 1 minute break. A 1 minute break. I'll be right back in a minute and we'll continue our live coverage. Okay, we are back live. There's an hour and 5 minutes until midnight there, when Hamas has threatened to launch some more rockets. Will there be a ceasefire soon? You know, yesterday we were talking about how things seem to be on the way to a ceasefire, maybe this weekend. And then last night there was this terrible incident where Israel targeted a residential structure. Israel said that that was being used for military purposes, but a family of 10 was killed, including 8 children, was killed in that strike, and there were lots of horrible videos and photos of dead children. So that, and then in response to that, for hours, Hamas started firing more rockets from Gaza into Israel. One of those rockets ended up killing an Israeli citizen in a suburb of Israeli resident in a suburb of Tel Aviv. So, where does that leave us with ceasefire? I don't know. It seemed like we were on this way to a ceasefire, and then things, started ramping up again and escalating last night into today. So, I don't know where we're at in terms of that. I'll let you know if we hear more. Now, where is this coming from? Okay, so this is interesting. I can't confirm this. Amir Bobat is a reporter with Walla News, which I believe is in Israel. And he has a report about what he's hearing about. This is about when a couple nights ago, Israel launched this major attack on Gaza with lots of airstrikes and artillery. And what Israel said they were doing is Israel said we were attacking some of the tunnels in Gaza. There's an extensive tunnel network in Gaza, which Gaza uses to move weapons around and move people around, all underground, so Israeli surveillance can't see them. And Israel, they targeted a bunch of these tunnels. A couple days ago. So this is just Amir Bobat has some analysis of it, what he's hearing. This is interesting. And so this is what Elint News basically is passing along what Amir Bobat said. And he says, attack on the Gaza metro. The metro is the network of underground tunnels. For Hamas, it's a strategic tool that Hamas worked on a long time and put a lot of money in, these tunnels. Hamas is shocked by the incident, says Amir Bobat, and so far has not been able to digest it. Until this moment, it does not know how many people are buried in it. So there very well may have been Hamas fighters in those tunnels when Israel blew up some of the tunnels, and they just, got killed there. And then you'd have to dig them out. Then it says, this reporter says Hamas's attempts to rescue its people from the Gaza tunnels were also thwarted. After the fighting, they will have to explain to their families why the fighters did not return home, and then we will know who was buried there. The IDF is preparing to expose Hamas's cover-up. So, anyways, I can't confirm that reporting, but I would not be surprised if there were a number of people who were killed who were in that tunnel network when at least some of the tunnels were destroyed by Israel. Okay, let's see here. Michael Chambers' comment says, hard to believe this conflict stems from the British mandate almost 100 years ago, two peoples promised the same stretch of land. I would argue it goes back longer, from when some Jewish people started moving into that area, Palestine, to establish a state in the hopes of establishing their own state as a place they could live safely. So maybe even longer. But thank you, Michael, for writing in. It is certainly a long-term conflict with no signs of going away via negotiation anytime soon. A second here. Your imaginary friend said on Reuters, they had on the Reuters live stream, you could hear the roof knock on a building. And maybe I guess maybe people saw some strikes, I don't know, on the Reuters stream. If you go to Reuters Live on YouTube, there's a live shot of Gaza. So I'll keep an eye on that. Thank you, your imaginary friend. Yeah, we showed this before. Andrew Tessara sent this to me. We showed this video before from Ali Yunus, where he showed people, journalists, packing up their stuff hurriedly because that building, that high-rise building was blown up where they had offices in. Video shows AP and other journalists gathering their equipment and gear to evacuate their offices in 12-story Al-Jala residential building in the heart of Gaza before the building was destroyed, because Israel said it was being used for military reasons. So the building's just destroyed now. It has been dropped to the ground. Kevin Rashewski says, who is supplying Hamas with the rockets? I get that question once in a while, pretty regularly. I can't tell you exactly. I mean, so I haven't really looked into it in detail. I have read that Hamas, I was reading a story last night that said Iran gives Hamas know-how to build the rockets. So I don't know how many of them are built domestically and how many of them are maybe shipped in, or maybe they're shipped in parts. I don't really have a good answer for you on that. And look, it's not going to be something they're open about, right? They're not going to say, here's how we get our, if somebody's sending them stuff for rockets, they're not going to say, hey, here's how we get them. Let's see here. Here's Washington Post. So they have something here. Where do the weapons come from? Hamas has acquired some rockets from abroad, some from Iran, some from Syria, according to Hinds, but the group is now capable of producing rockets domestically, with ranges of almost 100 miles. Although militants used to smuggle weapons across the Egyptian border, that route has been virtually sealed off since Egypt cracked down on the practice. Although it has become increasingly difficult to obtain fully assembled weapons from abroad, says Washington Post, Hamas leaders bragged on Al Jazeera program that they had managed to sneak some rockets in. Now Hamas produces the bulk of its weapons at facilities in Gaza using homemade and smuggled materials and know-how transmitted from Iran and Lebanese militant group Hezbollah. Analyst Ian Williams says rocket fire from Gaza over the past days reveals a larger Iranian footprint on Hamas's weapons program. We're seeing this in just the volume that Hamas is able to put up, the intensity of them, the size of the salvos, and the coordination of those salvos, which is greater than we've seen in the past, he said. That is from Washington Post. And analyst Fabian Hinds says that Hamas produces rockets themselves. He says, in terms of a technological military shift, it's quite something that you have a non-state actor that manages to strike targets in Tel Aviv using means they produce themselves. That article, if you want to read it, is What Weapons Do Palestinian Militants in the Gaza Strip Have and How Powerful Are They? Thank you for the question to our viewer. Was it Brian? Hold on one second here. Kevin. Kevin asked the question. Ahmad says they roof knocked the National Bank. Will be taken down any moment now. I don't know if it was the National Bank. I don't know what specific building it was. But yeah, we've seen reports a building was roof knocked. So I will let you know if I hear more about that. Yes, one of our viewers said they saw it on the Reuters live stream. Oh, Prime Minister Netanyahu is speaking right now, apparently. Yeah, a branch of the bank. See, this is, Aleph says, another branch of the Hamas-controlled National Bank has been roof knocked. So again, Prime Minister Netanyahu is speaking in Israel at the moment. Thank you, Kite, who sent me some translations. And then one of our viewers said, your imaginary friend said the building roof knocked was the building behind the neon roof on Reuters live stream. I did not see that, but we'll see what happens. Manny Fabian says, Prime Minister Netanyahu, who is speaking right now, says Israeli forces are destroying the Hamas defensive tunnels, not only the ones used to infiltrate into Israel. Thank you, Old Dirty Wonka from Canada, for your support. I really appreciate that. Old Dirty Wonka, thank you. Thank you also, Gay Joe. Gay Joe, thanks for your support. Thanks also to Edan Safrir, who says, nobody should be in the building that was bombed. Israel gave a warning, so no innocent civilians will die. Yeah, no, I said that repeatedly. The building that was, we showed you video of the journalists gathering their stuff in the building because the building occupants were warned, that high rise that was brought down. Yes, they did warn occupants of that building before destroying it today, Israel. Edan says you should ask yourself why Hamas places all offices and weapons in a civilian area. Thank you, Edan, for your support. Also, a quick thank you to Michael Johansson. Hey, thanks, Michael Johansson, for your support. Very much appreciated. Thank you. Thank you also to, hey, Carolyn James. That's very kind of you, Carolyn. Very kind of you. I really appreciate that. Carolyn James, thank you. Also, thanks to Matt Hines. Matt Hines and Andrew Schlegel for your support. Thank you, Matt Hines and Andrew Schlegel. Prime Minister Netanyahu is speaking right now. Aleph says that he just said the operation will, I think he means will go on for as long as it takes. Yes. Amakai Stein says, the operation will continue as long as necessary. How long is this? I have no idea. Intel Doge posts, is important bit to note as Prime Minister Netanyahu speaks, is that Netanyahu is saying that the operation will take as long as it needs. The Israeli Defense Force is very clearly hell-bent on making sure it doesn't need to do this a couple weeks, months from now. IDF is determined to set back Hamas and co. at least a couple of years. That's what Intel Doge thinks. I mean, I will say this, so, look, under normal, Israel might feel like, under normal circumstances, right, if there was no hostilities going on, Israel, it would be very provocative for Israel to just start launching strikes on Gaza. But hostilities are going on right now. So, if Israel wanted to strike anything in Gaza, it's not like more airstrikes will be that much more provocative than the ones already have been. So what Intel Doge is saying is like, if there's something militarily Israel wanted to do in Gaza, now would be a time to do it because they're already involved militarily there. That's what Intel Doge thinks is going on. Elint News also relays this from Prime Minister Netanyahu's speech that he was just making. Prime Minister Netanyahu of Israel, the operation will take time, and we will continue to destroy the Hamas tunnel network, and it will continue as long as necessary. Interesting about the tunnel network, remember, in 2014, the hostilities now between Israel and Gaza are the worst since 2014, when Israel actually launched a ground operation into Gaza. And that ground operation focused on taking out the tunnels. Hold on a second here. Gaza has these tunnels, an extensive tunnel network, which they use to move stuff around and hide and operate outside of where Israel can't see them. And also they've used this network to sometimes, some of the tunnels actually go into Israel, and they have used the tunnels before to infiltrate Israel. "2014 Gaza War," Wikipedia, or also known as Operation Protective Edge, was a military operation launched by Israel. The Israeli operation in 2014 was designed to stop rocket fire from Gaza into Israel. Israel destroyed at least 34 known tunnels in that operation. Where does ground invasion? Blah, 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 blah. After IDF began a ground offensive on the Gaza Strip focused on destroying tunnels crossing the Israeli border. But something the Prime Minister, this was in 2014, the Prime Minister just said, according to one of the posts we just read you, they're not just focusing on the tunnels that cross into Israel, they're focusing on the other tunnels, the defensive tunnels, they said. So I don't know how exactly they do it, but I guess they launch strikes that maybe collapse the ground and collapse the tunnel. Now, this is a little analysis from Gaza Report, who I follow. This is their thought about what's going on with the rocket strikes from Hamas recently. In the coming tweets, our analysis of the Qassam military successes versus their failures in this round, and with reflection to their preparations that began immediately after 2014 hostilities. Qassam is Hamas. The primary goal of Hamas in this round, says Gaza report, after being denied the ability to conduct tunnel attacks, is to overwhelm the Israel air defenses numerically with their rockets, including to long ranges. This has been achieved in Tel Aviv, Ashkelon, and elsewhere. He's saying they're firing huge amounts of rockets, so with the hope that the Israeli Iron Dome system won't be able to handle that amount of rockets, and some will get through. Second goal is to increase the accuracy and payload of the homemade rocket models that eventually penetrate the defenses to cause maximum damage. This has been achieved with the new models, unlike the long-range rockets of 2014, which had light warheads. The third goal is to sustain long-range rocket fire until the very last days of the conflict and shutter the Israeli population indoors for long periods. It is not yet known if this will be achieved. That's from Gaza report, their analysis. Dave Flanagan says, will there be any ground combat, you think? At this point, I would say no, because Israel doesn't want to send troops into Gaza. It would be a lot of casualties. It would be especially provocative in the Arab world, and I actually read, I forget who posted it. Somebody I read yesterday talked about how Netanyahu politically doesn't want to have a ground war going on in Gaza. So if Israel were to send troops in, it would be with a specific military objective, involving taking out rocket firing capability or tunnels or whatever else. But I mean, to me, it would have to really escalate more. It doesn't seem like it's on track for that to happen right now. There would have to be a lot more escalation. Like the rockets would have to go on for a significant amount of time longer. Now, if the rockets are still being fired in a week or two, 2 weeks, maybe that changes things. But it's not looking like it's tending toward that way right now, to me, and some analysts I've read. Oh, Gaza report is also going to say, I'll try to catch this, there are several failures that in the Hamas rocket firing strategy over the last several days. I'll catch up with them and see what they post when they post it. Hey, by the way, there's 42 minutes until midnight. It's 11:18 p.m. in Israel, and Hamas has threatened to start striking fire rockets at the Tel Aviv area at midnight. Let's see if I can find you that. Where is it here? Hamas hints it may fire rockets at Tel Aviv after midnight. Hamas's armed wing says the terror group, they call them the terror group at Times of Israel, will not strike Tel Aviv between 10 p.m. and midnight, but that ends in 41 minutes. Hamas has promised to strike Tel Aviv and central Israel should Israel continue destroying high-rise residential buildings in Gaza. The Israeli military has destroyed at least one such building today and threatened to destroy another. So in about 40 minutes, we'll see if there's more rockets. Thanks, by the way, to Martin Schill. Where is Martin? Let's see here. I don't know. Argentina? Argentina, I think Martin is in. Martin says, do you think Israel would let Palestinians in if they were Buddhists? Because I think the real issue is the Islamic radicalization. I'm a little confused over the question, so I don't want to misinterpret you. But, I mean, the issue right now is Well, what I should do, let's take a step back and talk about. I like to once in a while, because people will say, why are they fighting? How did these latest hostilities get started? So let's just talk about that briefly. So basically, what happened is tensions have been building in Jerusalem for about a month now. Now Gaza's over here, Jerusalem's over here. Gaza is Palestinian territory, but there's been tensions between Israelis and Jews and Palestinians in Jerusalem, and eventually the Palestinians in Gaza got so angry about this they started firing rockets at Israel. But some of the events, some of the reasons for this tension in the last month in Jerusalem were, for one, in April, the Islamic holy month of Ramadan started, and Israel fenced off an area in the old city of Jerusalem where Muslims would usually gather during Ramadan. And Israel said it was for security reasons, but that got a lot of Palestinians angry that they were preventing the Palestinians from going to this place they would normally go to in the old city of Jerusalem. So that happened. Also, there's this court case that's been ongoing, which was supposed to get decided in like last week, but it ended up getting pushed for a month. And it's a very touchy, controversial court case because it involves the ancestors of Jewish people whose ancestors owned property in East Jerusalem decades ago, before 1948. They're trying to use the court system to kick out the Palestinian families who currently live in that housing. And without getting into all the details, that's a very touchy subject, and that court case has gotten a lot of Palestinians angry. And then, as a result of these tensions, there were these clashes between Palestinians and Israeli security forces that took place on the Temple Mount. The Temple Mount is this area in Jerusalem that's a very holy area for both for Jews and Muslims. And these clashes between the Palestinians and the Israeli police, they took place right at the Al-Aqsa Mosque on the Temple Mount. And the Al-Aqsa Mosque is the third holiest site in Islam. And actually, at one point, Israeli security started firing stun grenades, noise grenades, into the Al-Aqsa Mosque. I'm not sure. I've seen conflicting reports out of whether there's some reporting that says at one point Israeli security forces actually went into the Al-Aqsa Mosque, and the security forces were doing this because there were protesters were throwing things at the security forces, like throwing rocks at them. So, anyways, but the scene, there was hundreds of people got injured, and like that whole scene of clashes between Palestinians and Israeli security forces at the Al-Aqsa Mosque got a lot of Palestinians angry. And then right after that, shortly after that, those clashes, the Palestinians in Gaza, out of anger at all this, started firing rockets into Israel. And then once they start firing rockets into Israel, then you're going to have the back and forth of rockets get fired into Israel, Israel launches airstrikes on Gaza, people get angry in Gaza and they fire more rockets, and so forth and so on. So that's how we got here. These tensions built up in Jerusalem, and basically it angered Palestinians so much that the Palestinians in Gaza started firing rockets at Israel. So that's where we are now. Thank you, by the way, to, hold on a second here. I want to say a quick thanks to our moderators because they are fantastic and they are all volunteers. So let's give a shout out to the moderators. They're the ones who keep the chat respectful and civil, and they are awesome. Danny James, I know, has been moderating. Sarah Joy, Sarah55. Really appreciate the moderators. Mark Helton, thank you. Short Stack, thank you. They are great. I mean, they really make the chat readable. Thank you, moderators. Also, we have Duxor Ellieborn, Idaho Star, Papa Bear, Racing Neophyte, Rift Tracks, and Sully. Thank you so much for moderating there on Twitch. Okay. And by the way, we would love to have some more moderators. If you're interested in being a volunteer moderator, you can ask the mods for more information. And we'd especially like, because we've gotten some more viewers on Facebook lately, if any of the Facebook viewers are interested in being a moderator, I'm going to post an email address you can write to. That would be awesome. I'm posting that right now in the Facebook chat. Let's do that right there. I just posted it. Okay. Thank you, Edon Saf, for your support. Now, Edon says, please search the Palestinian flag before 1948. Now, I don't know what I'm supposed to find. I'm assuming this is some kind of argument on one side or the other for who's right and who's wrong, and I'm not really getting into that on these streams, so I'm not going to do that on the air. That's what it sounds like to me. That's not the purpose of this broadcast is to bring you the latest details about what's going on with the situation, not to get into arguments about who's right and who's wrong. So I'm assuming that's what that is for. Is that what it is? Because that's not what we're getting into here. But thank you, Edon, for your support. Ooh, hey, we got an update here. Parallel Universe posted this. Egyptian reports intense mediations in order to reach ceasefire. Egypt is usually the ones mediating between Israel and Gaza in these situations, Israel and Hamas. That's from Parallel Universe. All right, let me show you some updates here. 33 minutes until midnight. In 33 minutes, it will be midnight in Gaza and Israel, and Hamas has threatened to start launching rockets again at midnight. Will that happen at midnight? We'll have to see. Ooh, that was earlier. That's not now. And then where is this? Is this the West Bank? Kalkia. Let's see if that's translated correctly. I don't know if it is. Kalkia is a Palestinian city in the West Bank. So this was, where was it here? Quds News Network says this is a mass rally in Kalkia in support of the Palestinians in Gaza and Jerusalem. There have been, in recent nights, some large demonstrations in support, pro-Palestinian demonstrations in the West Bank. Hopefully, it all stays nonviolent. So will we see rocket fire in about a half an hour? And then this is, hold on, I'll show you this report right here. This is from al-Fam, Israel, which is a mostly Arab city in Israel. Quds News Network reports there are confrontations, I assume, between Arab Israelis and Israeli security forces in al-Fam. I assume those are stun grenades, sound grenades. Maybe the security forces are trying to clear out the protesters. I'm not sure. It's interesting, though. We've been on the air, I think, a couple hours now, and there has been no rocket fire. There has not been a single rocket alert since we've been on the air. But at the same time, Hamas had said they were going to stop firing rockets toward the Tel Aviv area for roughly 2 hours between 10 and midnight. And it's now 11:30 p.m. there. So we'll have to see what happens. We also haven't heard of, periodically there's been reports the last couple hours of strikes by Israel on Gaza. So for example, and here's another one here. Al Gad Channel. Israeli boats continue to bombard Gaza from the sea. So there are these reports going on periodically of the strikes continuing. We haven't seen anything like on the live streams from Gaza, like a big explosion or anything, but there are strikes still going on. Thank you, by the way, to Svarter Brander. Thank you, Svarter. I appreciate that. Has there been any military support given to either side by a country outside the Middle East yet? Well, look, there's countries that give support to Israel and countries that give support to Hamas. That happens. In terms of so nobody's sending in troops. Nobody's going to do something overt right now in terms of support that they wouldn't normally do, because it'd be very provocative to the rest of the world. If some country all of a sudden started overtly increasing their support or sending in new types of weapons or sending in personnel, so that's not going to happen. But also remember, again, I think, I'm not saying about you in particular, but I think some people have this idea that this is like some kind of war that they're seeing this as like a war for the existence of Israel or Gaza. This is not Israel and Gaza in this hostilities. Neither of them, the existence of Gaza is not threatened. The existence of Israel is not threatened. Israel's military is vastly superior to Gaza forces. That's not going to change, at least in the long term future. For who knows? I can't say for 1,000 years from now, but the settled fact right now is Israel is much superior militarily to Gaza. That's not going to change. And we're in this cycle. We're in a cycle now of airstrikes and artillery strikes from Israel and rocket fire from Gaza. That's basically where this is. It would be a big deal if there was some other tactic used by either of the sides. I don't anticipate that happening. So there'd be no, if anybody's going to send aid, is Iran secretly trying to get more material to Hamas to get them to build more rockets? Maybe, but I mean, I know the numbers I've seen says that Hamas has launched about 2,500 rockets so far. As of 2014, back in 2014, they had around 10,000 rockets. So as long as they have at least as many now as they had in 2014, they're not running out of rockets anytime soon. And they also can build their own there. So no, there's been no kind of overt change in support militarily. I assume the countries that try to help Hamas are still trying to help them. But, I don't think no one's going to fly a plane into Gaza with supplies because Israel wouldn't allow that. Israel's all over Gaza in terms of surveillance. So no, I'm not aware of any, and I don't expect any kind of new intervention militarily by any country in this conflict. Thank you, Svarter, for your support and for the question. And thank you, Butterbat, as well. I appreciate that, Butterbat. Thank you. All right, big question right now is, will there be more rocket fire in 25 minutes? There are 25 minutes till midnight when Hamas has implicitly threatened to start firing more rockets. This is a big question. Strike. Hold on a second here. We have a report of a strike in Gaza City. Did people see this on their? Gaza City is where the live shots from Gaza tend to be focused on. Parallel Universe posted this from New Press. Occupation warplanes targeted west of Gaza City. I don't know if anybody saw anything or heard anything on any of the live streams they're watching from Gaza. JYNX said they heard an explosion on the Reuters stream. Okay, so it might have been that. It might have been that. If you go to Reuters Live on YouTube, they're showing a shot of Gaza right now. Let's see here. I was just looking to see if there's more reports about this possible strikes. So we got 23 minutes until midnight. 23 minutes until midnight. Here is, I just saw this article. No ceasefire yet. Israel said to want Israeli Defense Forces to complete missions against Hamas. This is from Times of Israel. They posted this article about an hour ago. Political leadership said not to be interested in ceasefire initiatives, thinks it still has diplomatic room for maneuver. Gaza terror groups, they're talking about Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad, I would assume, said ready to stop fighting, claim victory. Okay, so this is reporting from Times of Israel, new reporting. Israel has made it clear that it is not currently seeking a ceasefire with Gaza's terror groups, despite a number of proposals raised to halt the fighting, according to a report today. Channel 12 News said several initiatives have been proposed to end the violence. But Israel's political leadership favors several more days of fighting to enable the Israeli Defense Forces to complete the missions it wants to carry out against Hamas in Gaza. There were no further details given on these objectives. An unnamed senior Israeli source told Channel 12 News in Israel, "This is not the time for ceasefire. We are continuing." At the same time, the source said, it was clear there would be ceasefire discussions in the coming week because Israel believes it still has diplomatic room for maneuver. Meanwhile, after initially being cautiously optimistic about a ceasefire between Israel and Hamas over the weekend, a diplomatic source familiar with the negotiations told the Times of Israel today that the intense violence over the past 24 hours will likely delay such an agreement by a few days. This is just what we were talking about. Because there were these rumblings of a ceasefire being close, and it seemed like a ceasefire was close. And then in the last day, there was this: Israel blew up this house, this residential structure in Gaza that they said was being used for military purposes. But a family of 10, including 8 children, died, and there were all these pictures of the dead children. And that happened, and then Gaza launched a lot of rockets at Israel today in response to that, and one of them killed an Israeli citizen. I assume Israeli citizen, Israeli resident, definitely. So we were talking about this last night and saying, is this going to delay a ceasefire? So this reporting from Times of Israel says that they think they're hearing it's going to be a few more days before a ceasefire. A few more days. How about that? I hope that's not true, but I'm not surprised if that's the case. That is from Times of Israel. Okay, with the current 20 minutes until midnight, 20 minutes until midnight. Will there be more rockets at midnight? Steve Laboon says, has Israel ground forces moved closer to the Gaza border? Thank you for what you do. You're welcome. I know, Steve, that Israel called up some reservists in the military, not nearly as many as they did in 2014. I don't know if they've moved forces closer, but that's often something they do when there's hostilities with Gaza, is kind of a threat to Gaza. So again, I see no indication right now that Israel is going to move ground forces into Gaza. It just doesn't seem to be. It doesn't seem to be on the table right now in terms of something that's something they're actively consider. I mean, sure, they can if they want to, but I'm not seeing any reporting about it. It just doesn't. All what we're seeing is ceasefire at some point, maybe in a few days, but. You would have to see a big escalation, I think, from Gaza, or rockets going on for like a long more time for them to consider ground operations. I mean, look, they're conducting all of these attacks right now, Israel. So there would need to be something that they felt they could do. For them to do a ground operation, there would have to be something that they could do on the ground militarily that they couldn't do in the air, and they felt it was so important to risk, significant casualties and angering Palestinians and people around the world more by doing ground operations. So I just don't see it right now, and I'm not hearing any analyst say that they think that that's a realistic possibility anytime soon. Roof knock strikes. Where is this? Where is it? In Gaza City, breaking. Reports in Gaza, 2 roof knock strikes towards Al-Andalus high-rise, which is located near the Hanadi Tower that was bombed on Wednesday. So this is from Al-Aqsa Voice, which is a Palestinian site, I believe. Breaking news from Gaza. Our correspondent, roof knock strikes, I guess this means recon place target, the Andalus Tower west of Gaza City, which is the high-rise opposite Hanadi Tower, which was destroyed a few days ago. So this report says another high-rise has been roof knocked, which is where they warn the residents to get out. Thanks to Parallel Universe for posting that. Yeah, see, look, same thing from Aurora Intel. Roof knocks reportedly being conducted against Al-Andalus Tower. West Gaza City. Tower is a high-rise. Roof knocking. You can read about it at Wikipedia. Roof knocking, or knocks on the roof, is a term used by the Israeli Defense Forces to describe its practice of dropping non-explosive or low-yield devices on the roofs of targeted civilian homes or buildings as a prior warning of imminent bombing attacks to give the inhabitants time to flee the attack. The practice was adopted by the IDF in late 2000s. That is roof knocking. It is 11:45 p.m. Israel Gaza time, and it is. We're waiting to see if there will be rockets at midnight. Okay, it is 14 minutes. It's 11:46 p.m. So Hamas, which runs Gaza, and they're the ones responsible for most of the rockets being fired into Israel, has said that they're not going to fire rockets into Israel between 10 p.m. and midnight, and many people are taking that as a threat to start firing rockets again at midnight, which is in 14 minutes from now. So in the last couple hours since we've been on the air, there has not been any rocket alerts during this 2-hour period, mostly during this 2-hour period. We've been on the air. We came on the air a little bit more before it, but will we see in just 13 minutes now, 13 minutes, will we see rockets start firing again in 13 minutes? We will wait and see. Fairy Map from South Africa is hoping for no rocket fire. Well, me too, but I'm not optimistic. Abby Bond says, you were asking if anybody wanted to be a moderator. What do moderators do? Oh, so the chat moderators, who are fantastic, really what they do is they're just in the chat and they just make sure people keep it civil and respectful. So if people are misbehaving, if they're being disrespectful, if they're being offensive, saying terrible things, the chat moderators will step in and warn the people, give them a timeout, or ban them if they need to. So it really does make a huge difference in the chat. So that's what moderators do. It's a good question. Again, I really appreciate the moderators. They're amazing. It really keeps the chat readable and not just awful. So we have like Sarah Joy's there moderating right now. Thank you, Sarah Joy. And let's see, Lizzie, Danny James. I'm just going over some of the moderators here. Mark Helton, Sarah 55. And we also have Duxor, Idaho Star, Papa Bear, Racing Neophyte, and Rift Tracks. Thanks, by the way, In Furnace, for your support. In Furnace, thank you. And Amen, thanks for your support. Amen. 11 minutes. 11 minutes until midnight. 11 minutes. By the way, Parallel Universe says, reports in Gaza, intense Israeli Navy strikes near the Sudaniya beach in northern Gaza. "11 minutes until midnight." Ooh, hey, I just saw this. Couple things here. Quds News Network, which is a Palestinian site, says Israel Channel 13 says Israel asked settlers in one of the Ashkelon beach settlements to stay in their homes and do not leave them because they fear a security event. I'll have to see if there's any more on that. Also, Israeli Defense Forces just posted this 2 minutes ago. A short time ago, a Palestinian vehicle tried to run over fighters at a military checkpoint. Hang on. Okay, we have 10 minutes till midnight. 10 minutes. Will there be more rockets fired at midnight? 10 minutes. Give me a shout if you have comments, questions, updates at Lookner. Oh, here, yeah. So Israeli Defense Force